to Jace is just a very powerful effect against Mono Black.
Yeah, having Kiora Kiora was Mono Black Devotion was actually one of the decks where I thought Kiora would be really, really good because a lot of times they just try to beat you with a card like Night Veil Spectre or Desecration Demon, and Kiora can shut those down pretty efficiently. So let's see how Brian's deck is able to deal with Mono Black Devotion.
All right, so our game is underway. Both players are just trading temples for their opening turns. As you mentioned with Bant Walkers, they do have access to some more temples. He has a full 10 temples in his deck, 4 blue-white, 3 green, 3 of each of the green ones. As we see, second temple for Brian.
Yeah, so he's going to be able to set up his draws pretty effectively in the early turns, allow him to get into those Planeswalkers that he really needs. But it looks like Lukas has a Mutavault right now, and Brian doesn't look like he has much action other than Dissolve and a Supreme Verdict right now.
Yeah,
Looks like he did draw Jace.
I think he has a Jace, but once again, as you said, we're going to have that situation where Mutavault is going to do a great job of keeping Jace in check.
Yeah, so this is one of those situations where being able to uptick Kiora would be great, but Lukas did draw a second Mutavault.
Yeah, he used Mutavault to attack that turn as his turn 3 play. That was a really risky attack there, I would think, from Lucas's side.
Could have had a Last Breath.
Or Azorius Charm would have been, I think, the nightmare there.
Yeah. So Brian's going to uptick Jace here, it looks like, and now Lukas, if he has a second land, he can attack Jace, but it'll only be for 2.
Yeah, I mean, the worry about this from the Bant side is that he's just going to get Heroes Downfall, and then he'll never have gotten any cards off the Jace. But it looks like that is not going to happen. So Lukas taps out for a turn 4 Desecration Demon.
So Brian does have a Supreme Verdict if he wants to pull the trigger on it now and deal with Desecration Demon. He does have a Dissolve as well. So
now, if you're Brian, how much do you like digging for Azorius Charm here? If you can find Azorius Charm, you can have Charm with Dissolve.
Well, if I have a Scryland, I could see doing it first.
All right.
But it looks like, yeah.
He's going to make the safe play, blow up things plus Jace, pass back.
Yeah. Again, he still has the Mutavaults to contend with as well. And he has Elspeth in his hand, so I think he just wants to, just
survive to Elspeth.
Survive to Elspeth. And the other thing is here, if Lukas just tries to Heroes Downfall the Jace right here, then that means that's one less Heroes Downfall for the Elspeth.
Yeah. So 5th land from Lukas Parsons. We're going to see, looks like he's tapping 3. I think he's going to take this opportunity to resolve an Underworld Connections, but there is some pressure on the board for him. Yeah, Connections on a Swamp. This has always been a fantastic card against Blue-White. It did come down a little late this game. It's possible that Blue-White will be able to take care of it.
Ooh, wow. So Brian has a Jace in play, he has an Elspeth in his hand, and he just drew a Kiora.
It's his choice of Planeswalkers. So he's going to minus the Jace. He finds Last Breath, Dissolve, and an Island. Brian with plenty of lands in hand. It'll just be a choice between the 2 spells.
Yep, so looks like we're going to get the lands here.
Yeah.
Land and Last Breath, which I like because now he gets another land, plus he has a Last Breath to deal with the Mutavault potentially in the future. So
exactly. Brian, though, does not have an answer yet to Underworld Connections.
No, but I think the pressure is really on Lukas to find an answer to the Planeswalkers.
He can just draw. He can just draw enough cards to not care.
Yeah.
I agree.
Think, and Kiora too. It's gonna if he gets all 3 Planeswalkers in play, I don't even know what Heroes Downfall.
So we'll see whether or not he wants to hold up cards for Dissolve. Instead, he's just going to go ahead and run out Elspeth. He's daring Lukas to have a Heroes Downfall in the next 3 cards.
And I mean, that's a great play. I mean, if you can cast Elspeth to get it into play, no matter what, you don't want to, God forbid you lose it to a Thoughtseize, or you don't want to have to use a Dissolve on a Thoughtseize.
Well, he has a great follow-up of Dissolve and Kiora.
Yeah, which is perfect because that can prevent any Heroes Downfall shenanigans next turn. Right, well, so if he can just dodge it this turn, he's in really great shape.
1 card on end step drawn by Lukas off the Underworld Connections was no help so far. He did draw a Scryland. We'll see if he digs again. I have to think he's going to. The board's he's pretty far behind right now to Planeswalkers.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to have to try to dig for at least one of the Heroes Downfalls to try to deal with the Elspeth right away. If he deals with the Elspeth, he can attack with the Mutavault. He'll just get chump blocked by 2 of them, though.
Because of Bile-Blight, Lukas actually has some recovery here. He's going to start with a Thoughtseize. He can let the Elspeth plus for at least 1 more turn.
Yeah.
He's going to see land, Kiora, Last Breath, Dissolve.
So not a bad start for Lukas. At least he'll be able to deal with another Planeswalker. Or maybe he wants to take care of the Dissolve. The question is, yeah, I think he has to deal with Kiora. It's just, it's too good if it comes down.
Yeah, Dissolve is also very good against him. The problem is with the Dissolve, and why I almost would have liked to have drawn first here. If he finds Hero's Downfall off his draw, I think it's safe to take the Kiora. Otherwise, I almost feel like he has to take the Dissolve, because otherwise he'll have no, he'll need 2 Elspeth answers.
Yeah, if he doesn't have the Downfall now, he might. It's either way, he's going to need multiple Downfalls. So I think the bet there is that I might just draw another Thoughtseize. If he draws another Thoughtseize, then the Dissolve's not that big of a deal.
Right,
but if he draws a Thoughtseize, the Kiora can enter play next turn, so it won't matter.
So connections, we'll see what his next draw is. It is a Bile Blight.
So he could... No, he won't be able to attack. He doesn't have enough mana to activate both Mutavaults and cast Bile Blight this turn.
No, it looks like he may just establish some more Underworld connections. There's the danger there that if Jace finds a Detention Sphere, that will be the game. But he is behind an 8-ball right now.
Yeah, he doesn't. Like you said, Bile Blight does give him outs, though. He can find a turn.
He could let Elspeth make 6 tokens, and one of the weaknesses of Black in the past is that it's had no true sweeper. And at least he has a conditional sweeper here. He's going to leave up 4 mana and not make the second Underworld connections.
And there is the Detention Sphere. So
all right, so well played, Lucas.
So let's see, is Brian going to down tick Jace again to get a little more cards? Looks like that is what we're going to do.
Absolutely. So our top 3 are a Sphinx's Revelation, a Detention Sphere, and an Azorius Charm.
Wow.
Excellent draw. Kind of the power Azorius cards from RTR.
Yeah, so I have to imagine that there's no split you can make where Brian doesn't take the Revelations, considering he has a Detention Sphere in his hand.
If you split the other 2 in the Revelation, I think Brian might take the other 2. No, okay, he's going to stand correct. He's just going to go for the Revelation.
So now he has Elspeth in play.
Oh, well, he lost the Kiora, so card draw is just the premium right now.
You don't want to expose yourself to just losing one of your Planeswalkers and then getting the other one attacked somehow. So just reload on threats, I think, is the best position for Brian right here. He's going to make 3 tokens, uptick Elspeth again, and then pass the turn back to Lucas, likely. Or no, he's going to cast Detention Sphere on Underworld Connections.
All right, trying to take away Lucas's ability to fight back. Detention Sphere will be cast. It's going to enter the battlefield, target the enchanted swamp. Or the enchantment on the swamp. And he will be connected to the Underworld. No more. Lucas now just with lands in play.
So Brian has the Dissolve still in his hand, so he's in pretty good shape here. Lucas is only going to get 1 card this turn. Brian probably knows he doesn't have a Downfall in his hand.
Lucas will go for a Bile Blade on these tokens. Don't think Brian's contemplating a Dissolve here. Certainly, it's a strong play to Dissolve to keep this board, but I think he'll probably just let his creatures die.
Well, he's going to lose the Jace too. That's the problem.
He will.
Because he down-ticked Jace this turn, so if he lets it resolve, he's going to lose his Jace. Even though he has a Last Breath, he'll only be able to kill one of the Mutavaults. So he's going to have to... I think he's okay with that. He knows that Lucas doesn't have a Hero's Downfall in his hand because he would have cast it last turn, knowing that Brian has a Dissolve. So he's just going to chalk it up and say, I have a Sphinx Revelation. I'll be able to get card advantage that way.
That's the real card you have. And that's really the kicker about playing against Blue-White is they get these Planeswalkers down. And you work so hard to deal with their Planeswalkers, but you realize that was never what the fight was about in the first place. It was just about protect them casting Sphinx's Revelation.
Yep.
So 2 Mutavaults will both attack Jace. No plays will be made. Brian will bin the Jace. And we see...
Another Mutavault comes down.
Yeah, because of that attack, Lucas can cast Connections, but he cannot activate it this turn. He'll go ahead and go for it.
Yep, and
that should get dissolved. And Dissolve from Brian. That Dissolve does mean that Brian will not get to Last Breath of Mutavault this turn.
Yeah, but at this point, Brian's going to be able to untap, play a land, make 3 tokens, and pass the turn back. Now Lucas not only has to contend with an active Elspeth, but he's also going to have to deal with Sphinx Revelation for 5.
Yeah, and that's like I said, the best part about Blue-White is that's actually the only card that matters. That he sculpts the game just around making land. There's the combo is lands plus Sphinx's Revelation, and everything else in the deck is just there to protect it.
Yep. So Lucas has a lot of removal spells in his hand. Don't really do much right now. It looks like he might have drawn another Bile Blight, which could be good. At least it'll
I believe
keep the Elspeth from going ultimate this turn. But he's not going to be able to kill the Elspeth, though.
Yes, remember, in Brian's deck, this is still, because it's a Bant Walker's deck, it is not the Elixir-style blue-white deck. It can run out of cards, but it does have 3 Elspeths and 4 Jaces and 3 Kioras as its win con. So it has enough Walkers that it doesn't really have to protect any one of them. It can just, you know, even if Lukas were to be able to deal with this Elspeth, Brian would be okay with that.
Yeah, especially because he'll have Revelation for 5 here. But either way, I don't think, even if Lukas has a another land, he can cast Bile Blight, activate all 3 Mutavaults, but still only attack Elspeth for 6, and Brian still has that last breath anyway, so. Looks like we're going to see a Pack Rat on Lucas' side. Can't imagine Brian cares about that card at this point in the game.
I like that it represents, it's a plan, which I like on Lucas' side. Granted, after that Revelation, it's unlikely Brian will not find a Sphere or a Verdict or some way to deal with Pack Rat.
Yeah, he already has 1 last breath, so.
So he draws Verdict, land, 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 and land.
All right, so not bad for Lukas. It could have been much worse of a.
3 of the lands were temples, so Brian's going to have some great, excellent card selection. But the next card drawn is a Dissolve, and I think that's probably all Brian needed to find.
Yeah, so at this point, he could make 3 more tokens, and then ultimate next turn for lethal with a Dissolve now. So.
Temple keeps a card on top for Braun Duin.
Not sure if not sure if he wants to cast Supreme Verdict here. Looks like he's just going to make another guy, more 3 tokens, and then pass the turn back, threatening lethal next turn. Elspeth gives all your creatures +2/+2 flying, so that should be lethal. Lukas could just make a rat. Yep, so that's what we're going to do.
He'll make a rat.
Lukas does have a Gray Merchant in his hand, which will get him some life.
Yeah, Gray Merchant cannot be redirected to Elspeth, so he still is. He needs to find a way to deal with exactly what you said there, the Elspeth emblem making the soldiers fly over.
Well, the Bile Blight still will be, because of the rat, the Bile Blight can suddenly become lethal.
Right, so he's setting up for a Bile Blight and swing. As we know, Brian has found a Dissolve, which probably will counter any Bile Blight. But if Lukas finds a second one, he does play 3 in his main, so that could be possible. He could still sneak by here.
Looks like he has a Devour Flesh. Looks like another Desecration Demon. Underworld Connections.
I imagine he'll start on the Bile Blight here. You know, he wants to. His idea would be to Bile Blight the blockers and hit Elspeth. There are a lot of things that could go wrong for him. It could be a Azorius Charm, it could be another Revelation, another Elspeth.
He could, yeah.
He's aware.
I was thinking he could just attack because Brian's going to have to block here. Because if he attacks Elspeth, he's going to have to block here. So Brian won't have enough creatures, even if Elspeth goes ultimate, to kill Lukas that turn. And Bile Blight still is an out for him. So
this actually could be a lethal swing on Brian. If he activates 3 Mutavaults and discards a card, it actually is 12 damage.
Oh, okay. So it could have been going at Brian, but Lukas is attacking Elspeth here.
Which, yeah, I mean, that certainly would be a risky play.
It looks like Brian is contemplating gang blocking one of the Pack Rats. There are 2 Pack Rats in play. Is that correct?
Yep, there's still.
They're just getting. I think the judge is getting a Pack Rat token.
Okay.
And there are 3 Mutavaults, which, when activated, will end up becoming rats and pumping those Pack Rat tokens. So right now the Pack Rats are both 2/2s, but they could be 5/5s.
They could even be 6s if he's willing to discard a card.
If he discards a card too, yeah.
So there are 6 tokens, so that's relevant there.
So it doesn't seem worth it to gang block here, but maybe he wants to.
Yeah. Chump each one. Okay, he's going to put 3 in front of each. He's looking to force Lucas's hand. It certainly forces Lukas to make them 4/4s, I would think.
He has. Well, let's see what happens here. He has a last breath in his hand.
Right. I would think Lukas will just activate 2 Mutavaults. Yep, first one activates itself. So now the rats move up to 3/3s. Let's see what Brian has in store here. Rats become 4/4s. And now he's forcing a move from Brian.
Yeah, there's really no reason Lukas has to do anything else here. He could Last Breath one of the Mutavaults now, if that was his plan, and then cast Supreme Verdict next turn, and then uptick Elspeth again.
Yeah, but even if he does that, he's still going to lose all his soldiers. I am intrigued. I don't, on the surface, see what Brian's plan is here.
Yeah, it seems like it probably would have been just easier just to block
Put one in front of each, right?
Yeah, just put one in front of each. You still get 4 tokens, and then next turn, if you want to ultimate, you could attack for 12, but you're probably better off just keep making tokens out
By
there.
losing his creatures, this is going to commit Brian to casting Supreme Verdict next turn.
And I think maybe that was his goal because of Bile-Blight. Like, the fact that he knew he couldn't kill Lukas next turn and that Bile-Blight was still an out for him, I think Brian's basically just trying to play as conservatively as possible.
So he's forcing Lucas's mana here. By making that block, that forces Lukas to tap 2.
But he has to dissolve. Yeah, I'm with you. I think maybe just blocking one-on-one is probably better there.
He was going to Last Breath one of the Mutavaults. He has a second Last Breath in hand.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Oh, if he has a second Last Breath, then this play makes total sense then, because both the rats will both die then.
Right, well, Lukas can still discard a card to save the rats, and Last Breath's going to go for another Mutavault.
Yeah, but this leaves Brian in a great shape because he's able to deal with two of the Mutavaults, and then if Lukas does discard a card, then he's still going to just Supreme Verdict anyway.
Right. I think Lukas will make the play. He has held on to, and if you're Brian, you have to assume the free card you're getting here is a Devour Flesh. So not a thrilling card to get out of Lucas's hand, but a card, and more importantly, Lucas's mana for the turn.
Yeah. So Brian's going to be able to cast Supreme Verdict, make 3 tokens, and then still have Dissolve backup. And we know that he kept a card on top of his library as well. Lukas up to 24
and
life.
Brian has drawn on what could be a nail in a coffin. It's Sphinx's Revelation. Always the backbreaker from these decks. Supreme Verdict sweeps things up. Elspeth makes 3 more tokens, and now we have 5 lands and an empty board versus an Elspeth, and 10 lands and a Sphinx's Revelation and a Scry to the top. This is
and Lukas has only 3 cards in his hand.
Closing all the doors.
4 now. Looks like he drew a Lifebane Zombie.
You know, you could cast the Lifebane Zombie, see the Revelation, and then
it does allow you to scoop faster. That is true. So Underworld Connections, Gray Merchant still gives Lukas a little play here. He's at 24, so he's not dead right away.
Right, going for another Underworld Connections. And I think because of how Lucas's mana is tapped, I imagine this will still elicit a Dissolve. Brian, maybe in that not caring part of the game, when you get far enough ahead with blue-white on Revelations, you just stop countering anything.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to, but I kind of like countering it there, especially because he has a Revelation in his hand anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the reason to not counter there would be if Lucas's follow-up play was Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
That could be bad. It would be really unlikely that Lukas had somehow found a Thoughtseize, but it would be possible. And Elspeth Emblem will be made. The creatures are now 9/9s. And because of how slow this game has progressed, it's allowed Brian to emblem the Elspeth and still have Elspeth left.
Yeah.
Which is pretty valuable for him.
I think he drew a Cura for the turn. Or
Temple of Plenty. He drew another Walker, it does seem. It could be Cura a possibility.
Well. If he didn't attack with everything, then he probably didn't draw Cura.
All right, swing for 3 puts Lukas down to 21. We have 10 mana open for BBD. 3 mana from Lukas. We'll cast Nightveil Spectre. Brian's just fine with that. Looks like he's another Elspeth that was drawn, but Sphinx's Revelation for 10 will win the game. Actually, there's a second mode. It says if X is 7 or more, win the game.
Yeah, nothing like the classic concession to a giant Sphinx's Revelation. So Brian Duin wins game 1 pretty convincingly. I mean, Lukas didn't draw Hero's Downfall that game, but I don't think it would have mattered. Brian was he had too many threats. He had all those Planeswalkers, plus he had Sphinx's Revelation. Lukas was only able to attack one of the Planeswalkers out of the game, and then he was able to Thoughtseize another Kiora, but eventually Elspeth just did the job.
Yeah, for me, this traces back to the actual keep that Lukas had. Remember, on the draw, his first 3 turns were Temple, Mutavault, hit for 2. Those were his first 3 turns, which I think really was not enough pressure to compete with the fact that the first spell cast of the game was a turn 4 Jace on Brian's side. That put Lukas in too far of a hole for him to come back.
Well, I think he might have had Underworld Connection in his opening hand, So I think if his hand is Temple, Mutavault, Underworld Connections, the other 3 cards, I mean, they would have to be pretty terrible for me to want to ship that against Control on the play. Mostly just because you have Connections, you have Mutavault, both those
Well, he
cards
was
are
on the
really good.
draw, though.
Oh, he was on the draw. Either way, though, I mean, you still have Connections, which is one of the cards, and you're also not 100% sure what your opponent is playing against. I mean, I don't know if what is the rest of the hand, what the rest of his hand was, but I think he probably just got a little unfortunate because
Yeah, he didn't have the
he was
second
expecting to
black.
get a second black mana a little earlier, especially with the Scry land and being on the draw. So, not sure I'd fault him for keeping there. But after board, he's going to be able to board out some of those removal spells like Devour Flesh, and bring in cards like maybe he wants to bring in a couple more copies of Lifebane Zombie. But mostly it's the 2 copies of Duress and 2 copies of Erebos, God of the Dead, that he really needs in his deck. So.
Yeah, well, it's nice for Brian that this mono black build has gone down to only 2 Duress in the sideboard. For a while, it's fashionable to be playing 3 or 4 Duress in the sideboard. Duress, I think, is just far and away the best card against Duress and Thoughtseize. I think are the best cards against Bant. Even though cards like Connections are great, Erebos is great. From playing from the control side, I actually think that the Duress and Thoughtseize are the best weapons against you.
Yeah, I'm surprised that his list actually went down to 2 Duresses because he probably expects a lot of green decks and aggro decks to show up because, like he said, he's playing 1 Lifebane Zombie main. He still has the 4 Dark Betrayals in his sideboard, so he's hedging more against creature decks with Drown in Sorrow and the 2 Doomblades than he is, and 1 Ratchet Bomb than he is really against Control. So he is a little weak to Control because he doesn't have that 3rd or possibly 4th Duress. But again, 2 Duress, 2 Erebos, and if he wants to bring in 2 copies of Lifebane Zombie, he has those cards, which obviously can come out. Devour Flesh is probably going to come out, along with maybe a couple of copies of Bile Blight, and maybe 2 copies of Pack Rat, because you don't really need 4.
All right, so let's look at Brian's sideboard. It has not changed too much since pre-Born of the Gods, but there are some new things in it. It does have the 2 Revoke Existence we were talking about. That was another great tool. I expect those to come in here.
Yeah,
that's one of the matchups where I really would want it.
That's the card that really made me like Blue-White even more, because I thought the Blue-White Mono-Black matchup was pretty close depending on the builds and the players. But I think Revoke Existence is just a huge advantage for Blue-White because it allows you to deal with the cards like Erebos and Underworld Connections, which were so difficult. It was one of the main ways that Mono Black tried to beat you. Now, if you have an efficient answer to those cards, it's just so huge. You don't have to use your Detention Spheres on them. You can hold your Detention Spheres for other stuff. So I think that that's a huge upgrade for Blue-White that Blue-White has against Mono Black decks.
Yeah, now on the other cards on the sideboard I'm going to go with, 2 Negates. That has always been something they've boarded in against Mono Black. I don't really expect that to change. So I would expect him to use those as well. He does have progressive levels of having a man plan in his sideboard. He does still have the 4 Archangel of Thune that became popularized a couple weeks ago. He does have 3 Brimaz, King of Oreskos, in his sideboard as well. I don't expect Archangel to come in here. I'm interested to see whether or not Brimaz does. Probably not.
I actually don't hate Brimaz here just because it come to play early, and it's kind of difficult for the Mono Black deck to deal with because it's unlikely he's going to bring in his Doomblades, and if he only has Hero's Downfall as a way to target it, that's a lot of pressure because you don't really want to use your Hero's Downfall on a non-Planeswalker.
Yeah, there's already 10 in Brian's deck.
Yeah, so
we are underway game 2. Both players once again trading temples on the first turn.
I think I'd bring in Brimaz against like anything. Anything except except for like green decks. It's probably not really good against a green deck, but against any other deck, I think Brimaz is just awesome.
All right, and we have a Thoughtseize on turn 2 from Lukas, so we'll get to see what was kept. It is a pair of Kioras, a Detention Sphere, a Revelation, and 3 more lands. So no board cards as of yet.
But it's got that Kiora, so.
Well, this is one of the. There's the danger here that Lukas has kept one of those hands of 3 lands, Thoughtseize, Underworld Connections. Well, if he takes the Detention Sphere, Brian's got to certainly be worried about that. That's a hand that any Blue deck can have a real difficult time beating.
Yeah, but look at the difficulty of having to contend with this deck. So he does take the Detention Sphere.
Yeah, so if you're Brian, you're worried that this means you're going to get Connections.
Part of it's that, and part of it's that maybe Lukas is thinking that there's just so many good cards in there. I'm with you. He's probably playing around Underworld Connections, but having to deal with Sphinx Revelation and Kiora, is pretty difficult.
And a nice 1-2 punch here. Night Veil Spectre was made from Lukas, and as you see now, the king of the cats, it's Brumaz on Brian's side.
There it is. That is a great answer to Underworld Connection.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna start attacking you.
Just attack you.
You want to pay a life for a draw card? Be my guest.
All right. Well, Lukas will undaunted. He will continue. Night Veil Spectre will hit in. First damage will be on his side. He chops a Supreme Verdict off Brian's side of the deck. Lukas does play two green. If he hits his 2 white temples, then he could cast this maybe. Probably not. And actually, Lifebane Zombie will brick.
So a little unlucky there. 1 turn off from Brumaz.
Well, Lukas, had he hit his 4th land there, his play would have been Connections, draw a card. He actually missed land number 4, which is pretty. That's a pretty big miss for him.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough spot for Lukas now because Brian does have a Brumaz in play, and he also has that Kiora in his hand still.
Yeah, so now Brian, this is something that Bant couldn't do before. This Brumaz into Kiora draw is actually going to exert a lot of pressure, just aggro pressure on Lukas.
So, it looks like Jace too. It looks like he drew Jace for the turn. So Jace likely going to come down here and uptick, which means that Lukas's turn is just going to be attack for 3.
Yeah, well, if you're Lukas, you probably need to continue to hit with Night Veil Spectre in hope of getting that land off Brian's deck. Lukas actually, because of Spectre, had 2 draws to hit a land last turn. Didn't connect on either of them.
Looks like Lukas drew another non-land
card.
There's a
Thoughtseize. Now, the worry is he knows that Brian's hand has 2 Kioras in it, so Thoughtseize actually doesn't have any value right now. You know, it would take a Kiora, but Brian's next play is Kiora regardless of whether he gets Thoughtseized or not.
Yeah, and this is why I really like Brian's strategy after board, because he just boards in so many proactive cards. So Thoughtseize, while it's still effective, there are a lot of cards that Brian can top deck and just get into play, so he's not nearly as much of a spell deck as he was game 1.
And a second Supreme Verdict chopped for Night Veil Spectre. So Lukas continues to, with two draws a turn, miss on his lands. And we see another Lifebane Zombie. Revelation, Kiora land. And Lukas is getting pretty far behind.
So Brian drew a Breeding Pool for the turn. Jace was not attacked last turn. Brian's life total was. So Jace is free to uptick again, or if he wants to downtick now, try to draw a Detention Sphere for those Lifebane Zombies.
Yeah, he's got a lot of options available to him right now. The Lifebane Zombies really are not providing, I think, the pressure that Lukas was hoping they would. And maybe that once again, I think, has a lot to do with Brumaz.
Yeah, that and Jace. I mean, Jace just shrinking him down to 2 power is rough. But here Brian downticks Jace, and now he's going to get an Elspeth or 2 land. I'd imagine that's probably going to be the split. Unless he thinks maybe Brian is land light. Either way, I think you have to just go Elspeth 2 lands here. So let's see what Lukas decides to do.
Yeah. Down to 9. To me, it feels like he just has bricked that 4th land too many times.
So, yeah, Lukas is already at 9. Brumaz is attacking his life total, and Kiora can literally just get another. Kiora likely just going to fog for the turn one of the creatures. He could just blank the Night Veil Spectre if he wants.
Right. I mean, and that's what it means that Lukas is going to have a removal spell for Brumaz. What I like about Brumaz actually is how well it can deal with Desecration Demon. Once it's hit once, Desecration Demon can't actually block and kill it because he can continue to offer up cats.
Yeah.
To the demon.
So here comes Kiora, and
he may just even draw a card with it. All right, you're right. He'll fog off a Lifebane Zombie.
So that's great because now he can't kill both Jace and Kiora. If he chooses to attack Brian, that's perfect for him. If he chooses to attack one or both the Planeswalkers, only one of them will go away. So pretty good spot for Brian. He still has that Elspeth that is going to come down next turn as well.
Yeah, so actually this is the first time we've seen Kiora's plus ability worked in a match here. It's pretty peculiar. So it's until your next turn, prevent all damage that will be dealt to and dealt by target permanent and opponent controls. So it fogs off a card from attacking you, but you also can't kill it.
Yeah. So you don't want to do it before you attack.
Right. That's exactly what I was getting at.
So it looks like Lukas is going to attack with the Lifebane Zombie that isn't targeted by Kiora, as well as the Night Veil Spectre.
Interestingly, it does make cards like Kiora as it makes it a poor answer to a Bramaz. You can still attack. Then your opponent gets to attack with it and make a cat. Not a poor answer, but not a perfect answer.
So great hit there by Lukas because he did draw a temple, and now Gray Merchant is actually an out for him because he dropped Brian down to 6, I believe. And he does have a Gray Merchant in play, which would be for 9, I believe. So
he gets the Sphinx's Revelation, so there's the life gain gone. Lukas does have a chance here.
Yeah, so great. Finally, he hit that 4th land. So if he can get a 5th land, and I believe he got it because he scryed.
Well, this is huge. Okay, so Lukas may run away.
He's got a down tick.
He's got a down tick. All right, let's see if Brian can hit. Brian needs to hit a counter spell or a life gain spell. He's hit Sphinx's Revelation. Revelation's got to be the card he wants. The question is, will it be enough?
Yeah, if Brian's actually at 11, if that's his correct life total, then I don't think that's enough.
Yeah, so we'll just confirm he's doing a great job of playing to his outs.
Yeah, because Gray Merchant for now would be an out. 2, 4, 7, 8, 9. If Brian's at lower than 9, 11.
Jace was minused.
Yeah, Jace was minus last turn too.
5 damage coming across from creatures, assuming Kiora's plus, which I would think she is.
Yeah, so Lukas could steal this one away.
That'd be all right. Well, you are correct.
Currently, it's looking pretty good for Lukas because of that Gray Merchant. If the card on top of his library is a land, yeah.
Yeah, so it's Gray Merchant for 9, swing for 5. That's a 14-point burn spell, and actually even. So yeah, Brian's at 6. That is more than lethal.
Yeah, so it looks like Lukas is going to steal this one if there's a land on top of his deck. So perfect sequence for Lukas. He was able to hit a land finally off that Night Veil Spectre. So
all he needed was 1 all game.
Brian might be kicking himself for not targeting the Night Veil Spectre with the Kiora, which is actually, I thought maybe he should do it just to make sure Lukas doesn't hit another land.
Well,
you want to kind of keep him off. Obviously, you lose both your Planeswalkers there, but I don't think it matters if you're going to follow up with an Elspeth and you're still keep hitting him down with Bramaz.
So we'll see if he's going to lose some of his damage here, though Mutavault is activated and a swing from Bramaz means that his 8 damage coming across at Lukas. Lukas is going to have to make 1 chump block here.
Yeah, so if he blocks the cat, he still should have enough. With
the Gray Merchant by itself is enough
damage. Gray Merchant 2, and Night Veil's 3 black, and then the other Lifebane zombie, so that would be for 7.
He's going to go ahead and trade with Mutavault. That will put him to 1. And another second Kiora is going to go ahead and keep off the other attacker.
Yeah,
and Lukas, he's like, I just can't wait to untap.
He's
At game 2, snuck out from under Brian's nose. Lukas Parson evens it up at 1 apiece.
Wow. So, yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot for Brian because had he used Kiora on the Night Veil Spectre, then Lukas wouldn't have been able to get to that 5th mana. However, Brian would have probably ended up losing both his Planeswalkers that turn. But again, did it really matter? I'm not sure if it would have mattered because he had Elspeth in his hand still, plus he has Bramaz, plus you have another Kiora in your hand. Maybe you have to play to your outs, and you have to know that Gray Merchant's probably a lethal.
Well, that's one of the dangers when you become this aggro deck post board like Bant is. Well, now you're suddenly playing an aggro plan against your opponent, right? So things like committing to the board and Gray Merchanting you suddenly become a thing that Mono Black's going to be doing. When you're this pure control deck, you usually don't worry about that because you're killing everything anyway.
Yeah, you have basically he couldn't really cast. He could cast Supreme Verdict there, but it's a little awkward for him. But either way, I still think it's fine because you're not really losing card advantage there. You're killing your own cat, but you still have a bunch of Planeswalkers in play, and your opponent has more creatures than you anyway. So
you're still the guy with Revelations in your deck.
Yeah, Brian. Yeah. I think Brian just got a little unfortunate because he didn't draw any removal spells. He didn't draw any of the detention spheres in his deck. He didn't draw any Last Breath.
Well, so
he didn't draw any Supreme Verdicts.
So here's my question to you then. He's boarded in three Bramazes to be assumed. Is it possible he's cutting removal spells to get to those Bramazes? You know, there have to cuts. Right? The cuts have to come from places like Azorius Charm, Dissolve.
I think Dissolve and Dissolve Syncopate are probably the first cards that he's cutting, because I think against a deck like Thoughtseize and Duress, you don't really want cards like that in your deck anyway. You'd much rather be more proactive. Last Breath isn't ideal, but you have to kill cards like Night Veil Spectre.
Right.
You can't let them go unchecked. So my guess is 4 copies of Dissolve and the 1 Syncopate probably coming out.
That does mean, though, cards, if you're out of counterspells, cards like Grey Merchant become a lot more impactful.
Exactly, but hopefully you can keep enough of devotion off the board so it doesn't
Sure.
matter. Or
hopefully there aren't 7 black worth of permanents just hanging out.
Yeah, that was one of those situations where, if Brian drew the Tension Sphere, the game's over, basically.
Sure.
But again, Lukas did stall on lands for several turns. So.
Yeah, I mean, I had felt looking at that game that early on, I really expected once Lukas thought seized the Detention Sphere, and then, I saw he had the Underworld Connections, I was thinking this was Lucas's game to lose. He made a lot of plays toward hitting that 4th land. He had a Night Veil. I think his keep was great. Thoughtseize into, Temple into Night Veil into Thoughtseize and Underworld Connections. Didn't hit his 4th land, fell really far behind, but was able to still sneak it out.
Yeah, Lifebane was really huge there. It made the Kioras just not very effective. You couldn't. There was a turn where Brian could have cast Kiora, but there were 2 creatures in play, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
He couldn't draw cards with the Kioras either. Yeah. Certainly in that situation, if I'm Braun, Duin, and I'm playing the Kioras there, and if my opponent does not have pressure in Lifebane zombies, I'm inclined to actually just minus the Kioras to ramp into a bigger Revelation as quickly as I can.
Although, and honestly, there was a turn where Brian could have cast Kiora, but he chose to lead with Jace when he was facing down a Lifebane zombie and a Night Veil Spectre. I think if he leads with Kiora there, it's a much better position for him because he leads with Kiora, he upticks it to 3, locks down the Lifebane zombie. Then on Lucas's turn, if Lukas decides to attack the Kiora, it just drops it down to 1, and he doesn't get the card off the Night Veil Spectre. And then Brian can then play the Jace, and then decide what to do there because then he's in a much better position, or he can just uptick.
So you're denying the draw. You're trying to deny the draw off Night Veil Spectre is the idea?
That, and plus, if you follow up a Jace afterwards, I think it's a little better position for you. You deny the draw from Night Veil Spectre, but I don't know. It's a tough spot for Brian because he just had. It looked like he had so many good cards in his hand, he just couldn't get the right sequencing in play.
All right, well, we are on to game 3, and it'll be led off by a tap land and a Thoughtseize from Lukas. We see a similar hand for Brian. He has 3 additional lands, Supreme Verdict, Bramaz, and Kiora. And this is why Thoughtseize is so good against those blue-white decks.
It's one of the reasons, people talk about how much, people like Brian Kibler, Patrick Sullivan talk about how much they hate Thoughtseize because
I am
it basically
in their
has
camp.
It doesn't matter what you're doing.
It's very good against cards. That's kind of
good against cards.
Non-land ones in particular.
So Lukas does go after the Bramaz, showing you just how important he thinks it is in this matchup.
Good news is Brian's draw for the turn was Bramaz. so
So
now, I have a question. Did he scry to the top last turn?
Because
if he did, what a next level play, right? He had a second copy of a legendary card, and he scryed to top thinking, yeah, he'll probably Thoughtseize this.
Well, I like it. Yeah, I mean, it shows you how good it is, or how good he thinks it is in this matchup.
And it'll be a turn 3 Bramaz. Lukas had a pack rat of his own. We'll see where he goes with this. Mutavault in play. He does have the Hero's Downfall for the Bramaz. That will take care of it. Pack rat swinging in for 1. It does mean the Hero's Downfall will not have its sights set on Kiora, though.
Yes, but Kiora can come down now. But again, there's just too many.
This is an awkward spot for Kiora, actually. This is a spot where Jace would be okay, but Kiora's a little.
Well, I still think it's fine because you play Kiora.
Yeah.
You target the rat.
You target the Mutavault, maybe. Just target the Mutavault, right?
Well, no, then it could die, right? No, I don't think you have enough mana. Yeah. So if you target the Mutavault.
No, if you target the Mutavault, it could die. It could die. He could activate, discard a card, and kill it.
Yeah, so this is fine here because if Lukas decides to activate Mutavault, attack Kiora down to 1, then Brian can just cast Supreme Verdict and then target Mutavault next turn.
Sure. So it goes up to 3. The rat has been, what is the term for that? You could say pacified? I don't know. What card has that effect?
It's under the wave. So it looks like Lukas is just going to pass. He's not going to attack the Kiora here. Looks like he just wants to activate Pack Rat.
It's Ghostly Possession does that, right? Because a creature can't take or receive damage.
Ooh, Pithing Needle. Looks like that's
Pithing Needle from Braun Duin. I think that's going to name Mutavault. Certainly, Lucas's turn there was a 4th land and a pass. We'll see if he chooses to. He does not know it's being named yet, so here's his chance to discard cards to Pack Rat if he wants to. Mutavault was named.
So it does name Mutavault. And then he uses Kiora on the pack rat.
And Kiora doing a pretty good job right now of actually keeping the board clean.
So Pine Needle's naming Mutavault. Kiora is targeting pack rat again. Now Lukas can activate pack rat to make another rat, but Brian does have a last breath in his hand, so he should be able to keep that Kiora in play.
Yeah, his remaining hand is Last Breath, Supreme Verdict, so he's really just trying to protect this Kiora and get it up to 5 here, I think. If he can, I want to say Brian's plan is just to emblem the Kiora at the moment.
So Last Breath takes out the Kiora rat, the pack rat token. Now Lukas is going to untap. He can't. That Kiora still has the original pack rat under lockdown.
Now,
so
interestingly, if Lukas had, in response to the needle, activated one of the Mutavaults,
he could have protected it.
Then he could then the Last Breath would have to have gone on the actual rat, which means the rat token would not be under the way from Kiora and would be free to attack the Kiora.
Yeah.
That's a pretty next level play, and I don't know if that does also mean that Brian can Last Breath your land, and maybe you don't even want that to happen. You know, there's a bunch of reasons you don't do that. Lukas with no plays there, just passed back the turn to Brian.
So, not sure what else is in Brian's hand here, but if he wants to protect that Kiora, he probably just casts Supreme Verdict here. He's close to ultimating Kiora, actually. So
right, I think that's his game plan. It's
yeah.
just ultimate Kiora.
Kiora -5, you get Krakens into play. So if he could just dodge a Hero's Downfall for one turn, he's in good shape.
He could just plus or cast Supreme Verdict, and then there would be some hoping involved there.
He's got a Sphinx Revelation in his hand as well, so he's got Supreme Verdict, Sphinx Revelation.
Excellent draw for the turn.
Yep, he's just going to go for it.
All right, Verdict.
Hope you don't have an answer.
Yeah, it forces Lukas to have a Hero's Downfall. Now we're going to see the power of Kiora.
And here we go. Don't necessarily have to concede just yet. We saw Grey Merchant pull out a win last turn, so.
And is it Heroes? No, it is Lifebane Zombie. And that's not the card he wants to see.
And
Lifebane
there's
Zombie
another
and
pack
rat. So, what is the... So, now we're going to get to see the Kiora
Release
emblem.
the Kraken.
Every turn, on the end step, Brian will get a 9/9 blue Kraken.
I think he's okay with that. Yeah.
Now, that's something Jace can't do.
Jace cannot do that. And now we're going to see a Archangel of Thrune for good measure as well.
So it's actually Brian's boarding in the full man plan.
And I like that. It makes it a lot more proactive. There's a lot more. You'd hate to mid game. You'd much rather top deck an Archangel than a Dissolve, like most of the time. So Brian's deck is basically I have a bunch of really powerful spells in my deck. You can't Thoughtseize all of them.
Well, this is not the first time we've seen Brian do this. Actually, at the Invitational in Las Vegas, we saw Brian play an Esper deck with a full 0 counter spells, 4 copies of Blood Baron in the main, a bunch of tap-out Planeswalker threats. For a while, Brian has really been the control player, the non-reactive control player. He's been the proactive control player, and I think we're seeing more of that in this list.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Kiora now is another Planeswalker that you have to answer pretty quickly. I think you're going to see decks like this show up more and more.
All right, so a swing from Lukas puts Brian down to 14. He follows it up with Desecration Demon, but the Krakens are already being released. One has been made so far, and they will continue to be made on end step.
Oh, so interesting draw here for Brian. He did draw a Mutavault, so if he wanted to, he could activate Mutavault, tap down Desecration Demon, and get in with the...
Except he needled Mutavaults.
Oh, that's right.
Which unfortunately is his own, too.
So we'll likely just see a Sphinx of Revelation for 3. He could attack with the Kraken and then gain some life, making the Kraken bigger because of the Archangel's ability.
Yeah, so going to combat, they're seeing if he wishes to make a sacrifice to Desecration Demon. I don't think he will. He's just going to go ahead and attack with a 9/9. And Lukas hits down to 13.
Lukas goes down to 13. Brian looks like he's going to gain 3 life next turn and make his entire army bigger with Archangel.
Yeah, I was going to say he could do it now. He could push 1 more damage through. Now go ahead and wait so he can have 2 10/10 Krakens.
I wonder if he's just going to do it now, just so if Lukas has a removal spell in response to the art.
I don't see I think you would do it now in case you draw a temple. You'd love to play a temple this turn.
Well, he played the Mutavault this turn, so he can't play anything, but he could have played it with the ability. So he's going to do it on Lukas's upkeep. So Lukas, if he has a removal spell, nope, doesn't look like he does. So all the creatures gain 1/1s.
Temple Island Temple.
So
Does happen in control decks.
Currently 24 points of power on Brian's side of the board.
Yeah.
And Lukas drew an Underworld Connections, which isn't ideal when you're facing that type of board.
I was going to say, if he drew 4 Bio Blights, he could take care of the Krakens.
So let's see here. Gray Merchant would be for 2, 4, 6, 7, dropping Brian to 10.
Mean, he needs a Hero's Downfall for the Angel. Then he would attack in the air and make chump blockers with Pack Rats.
Yes. So he definitely has outs.
But they have to come fast because Brian's got a bunch of very large creatures.
Looks like one of the Krakens was used to tap down Desecration Demon.
Wow. All right. I like sacrificing a 10/10. So you may hear a time in the round announcement right now. There are still 5 minutes remaining for these players. The on-screen clock is correct.
And with the amount of power on the board, I don't imagine it going to a draw. But then again, crazier things have happened. So Night Veil Spectre comes down for Lukas, which allows him to block the Archangel, but Archangel can still swing through.
Yeah, the thing is, so Life Bane is still attacking, so he's got some source of damage, but there's still a problem with Kraken. So Lukas, made that for the turn. Back onto Brian's turn. He's going to go ahead and Temple, ship a card to the bottom.
Looks like Brian drew a Supreme Verdict too, so he could just attack with both his guys and then wipe everything up and just saying, okay, I'm going to start making 9/9s.
I'll make 9s. I think that's what we're going to see. Yeah, a swing from the team from Brian. That's awfully suspicious of a sweeper. If Lukas does the full chump block, though, Brian may not sweep.
Yeah, he doesn't really need to sweep. He's gaining 4 off the Archangel, and both his guys are going to get bigger. So, he gains 4, goes up to 18.
Yeah, Pack Rat chumps the Kraken. And he's going to do it anyway, looks like. So Supreme Verdict will be cast here from Brian. That clears the board away. Now Lukas with no board presence. Brian passes the turn and once again resets with a Kraken. Conveniently, his opponent does that in 9 life.
Yeah, doesn't want to lose to any shenanigans like the last game with Disciple.
Lukas running out of options. He is going to go ahead and cast Underworld Connections. He has to actually cast it on his last remaining swamp. If he casts it on Mutavault, he can't use it because thanks to Pithing Needle. So he draws a card. That will not be an answer. And Brian Braun doing 2-1 does take the match.
So we saw one game where Kiora didn't look that impressive, another game where Kiora looked very impressive. So I think the verdict is still out on Kiora, but in my opinion, I don't know. I really like that card. Well, I think if you build your deck around it, there are some matchups where it's almost unbeatable. That
game of Protect the Planeswalker that Brian played was really impressive. Rather than most blue-white games are all about not losing. Can you answer everything your opponent's doing? But Brian took it a completely different way. He became the aggressive deck. He forced Lukas to answer the Kiora, and when he couldn't, Brian got an emblem, and from there the game became pretty academic for him.
Yeah. And